Tēnā tātou katoa. Today we're here in Tāmaki, Makaurau to commemorate Nakba Day, as well as to acknowledge the ongoing colonization, ethnic cleansing and violent displacement of Palestinians by the State of Israel.
We normally do protest here in Auckland on Nakba Day, but this year it's devastating. This is a crime against humanity. There's a trapped civilian population under bombardment by one of the world's most powerful military forces. And nothing is happening. New Zealand doesn't even recognise Palestine's statehood. So we haven't heard condemnation from our government in any way near the magnitude of this atrocity.
Why do you think there's a failure of the New Zealand government to recognise the apartheid state of Israel?
I think we're siding with our traditional allies. I think it shows an absolute moral failing and it shows a legal failing. There's international humanitarian law that exists that we are bound by.
What would you like to see from New Zealand government?
I would like us to recognise the state of Palestine. I would like us to hold Israel to account loudly in all of our international forums as committing an atrocity crime and call for justice. More than that, we need to call for Israel to be held to its borders. This is an occupation, it's a settler colony.
I'm here today because I can relate to the indigenous people of Palestine who are going under a colonisation process, an apartheid process, and that's something as Māori can relate to. Our fight today is about acknowledging the indigenous people of the tangata whenua of Palestine. We've got countries like the United States who weaponise an illegal state named Israel, the fourth largest army in the world that's nuclearized, and the Palestinian people have stones and rocks, but they've got mana. So this is why they still survive today.
Palestine will be free.
Palestinians are being forced off of their land and killed and taken a lot in the same ways that Māori land was taken from Māori. And it's about respecting Indigenous rights and Indigenous sovereignty. It is framed as a conflict, and that there's kind of the argument where there's two sides to it and everything like that. So I didn't really understand, and it's kind of like a meme in media, in TV shows and stuff, that people don't understand what's going on and people don't want to touch the situation because it's too complicated. But as soon as I'd done more research about it, I was like, oh, it's actually not, and it's part of what the US imperialism is perpetuating. It's definitely a thing. It's a thing in any kind of community, but especially white communities, that white people tend to listen more to white people. So fellow white people, do your research, educate yourself, and free Palestine.
But in Palestine, that they're trying their hardest to stay alive, and they don't have much homes, not anywhere to live. I want everyone to feel good in Palestine, that they're okay, to feel happy and free from the government or from the fire and killing.
I came here when I was like 5 for a march for Palestine for the same cause, and the turnout was about the same. Nothing's changed. None of my friends even know about it, so yeah, we come here to say that we've had enough and that New Zealand definitely needs to do something about it. Jacinda, you definitely need to do something about it. The news doesn't show it from both. It doesn't show it from the right perspective. It shows it from completely American and Israel perspectives, and and everyone's scared and everyone wants to shut up, and just because America's a big boss. So yeah, they'd rather see people die. They'd rather see people killed instead of cutting ties or calling out America for what it is.
Refugees will return! Free, free! Palestine! Free, free!
They took over Palestine, and they wouldn't let the children celebrate Eid or anything, so yeah.
Palestine is not alone. Here it is, as you can see, there's heaps of people, more than maybe, 2,000?
Can you tell us a little bit about what the situation, what the daily reality is like on the ground?
So many bodies laying on the ground, and it was terrible to see. That was when I was very young. Got used to it, but it's something we got used to, and it's terrible to make a kid see things that you shouldn't see, you know? Back in 1948, they started to occupy our country. Before that, they were living with us, but as soon as they got power and got funded from other countries, they started to take over our country. New Zealand is getting very famous recently because of how well they sorted out COVID-19. So they have the opportunity to actually talk about it, and a lot of people will see that.
I want to say to the Palestinians here in New Zealand, we hear you calling from the darkness. We hear you suffering, and we cannot and we will not ignore you.
Let's vow to never be silenced, to make sure the world sees what those in power do not want us to see, so that in my lifetime, my home, Palestine, will be free!
The day of Nakba, 14th of May 1948, 73 years ago, when more than 700,000 Palestinians, about half of the Palestinian population then, were kicked out of their own homes by an order from the head of the World Zionist Organization who founded the State of Israel in Palestine. They forced home expulsions, demolitions in order to perform ethnic cleansing of Palestine. The Zionist movement aims to occupy all of Palestine through violence, torture, systematic fear, and American propaganda.
First, we recognize Palestine, then we call out Israel, then we call out the United States and Australia and Europe and everyone else who's helping them occupy Palestine.
As the New Zealand government has stated that my little brother is stateless, why have you taken the identity of my little brother? He is not stateless. He is a proud Palestinian. We are proud Palestinians. And being a Palestinian means that you walk with your head held high.
A beautiful day here in Tāmaki, Makaurau, where people from all ages and backgrounds came out in show of solidarity of the Palestinian people. But still, there's a lot left to do. The New Zealand government still has not recognised the state of Palestine. They have not called out the atrocities of the Israeli state. It's time for them to be brave, to stand up and speak out against the Israeli apartheid and the ethnic cleansing that's going on in the occupied territories of Palestine. Kia ora.
It's raining fire from the sky. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Who will fall and who'll survive? I'll tell you why. In our thousands, in our millions, we are all Palestinians. In our thousands, in our millions, we are all Palestinians. I hear the children scream at night, and the haunting sound of a mother's cry, as in her arms her baby dies. So I tell you why. In our thousands, in our millions, we are all Palestinians. That's right. In our thousands, in our millions, we are all Palestinians. I see a boy pick up a stone as the tanks blow up his home. Well, he's not standing there alone. I'll tell you why. You know why? 'Cause in our thousands, in our millions, we are
free, free Palestine.
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 Free, free Palestine.